Testing, 1, 2, test. Testing. Hi, James. I see you're online. I want to make sure you can hear me okay.
I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me?
I can. Yes.
Wonderful.
That's great. We see you too. So we'll be with you in just a few minutes. I know we're rushed.
Perfect.
look like you're muted, yeah.
Oh, man, I'm so sorry. All right, we don't have time to go back, so thanks for letting us know. Anyway, I was just about to get to the most important thing I had said so far, which is the special announcements. I am thrilled to welcome a new PGP for Crypto partner, and that is Coinbase Institute. In just a few, thank you. In just a few moments, I'm going to introduce Christopher Edwards, head of Coinbase Institute and chief of staff to the chief policy officer at Coinbase. But before we hear from Chris, there is another partner that I'd like to introduce and announce. It's the University of Southern California Van Eck Digital Assets Initiative, or VITA for short. Can you show the next slide, please? And the next one. Okay, there we go. There's VITA, the website. So I encourage you to check that out. And related to that, I am extremely excited to announce that beginning next month on March 27th, we are moving PGP to USC. And no, we're not moving to LA. Yeah, nicer weather. We're not going there though. We are going to their brand new USC Capitol campus in DuPont Circle. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is just a gorgeous facility. We've got the whole penthouse, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. I think it's really going to take this meeting to the next level with these new partners, Coinbase Institute and USC VITA. So to talk about USC VITA, I want to introduce for just a moment James Healy. He's the co-director of VITA and adjunct professor of FinTech and Blockchain at USC Marshall School of Business. He's with us remotely today for just a couple minutes, and then he has to drop. James, would you be willing to say a few words?
Absolutely. Thanks to everyone. I'm sorry that I'm not there in person today. I used to live in DC, so I love getting back there. I look forward to seeing everyone in the fall, this spring, since I live in LA. Kidding aside, it's great to be with you all. And Paul, we're thrilled for the partnership. A quick 2 minutes about the Van Eck Digital Asset Initiative at USC. It was started 2 years ago. We received a $5 million gift, which has been great in terms of seed capital to start growing the initiative. There's already a ton of things going on campus. We have 19 blockchain classes across the university. But what we really did is we have a huge initiative the university's pushed forward through called the Frontiers of Computing. So AI, quantum, blockchain, and it's dedicated $1 billion to growing those initiatives. And what we've done with Van Eck Digital Asset Initiative is really look at the blockchain ecosystem and figure out how we can leverage USC's assets and be a leading global provider of blockchain education and ecosystem. And really, as we think about it, there's a couple of core pillars. Curriculum is kind of table stakes. You know, everyone's got blockchain classes, and now anyone in my class can just YouTube and learn better than me teaching them. Don't tell everyone that, but you know, that's the reality. The content there isn't the differentiator. That's kind of the ante to play. But for us, you know, the second thing is really the content. And that content is above, that's research, that's thought leadership, that's hiring people to work on these things, doing partnerships like, you know, this one in partnerships with some of our other partners that we'll be announcing, and then really building community. And that's, you know, bringing amazing students, that's having live events, digital events, partnerships with industry. We've had an amazing accelerator program that we're starting. We have big events, which are actually, we have a conference coming up 2 years ago. The keynotes are Kathy Wood, David Marcus from Lightspark, the people who are familiar with David. We had about 1,500 students come from around the country and globe. The club's flying from Cornell, from Berkeley, and that was a fantastic event. We actually have the next one that's going to be on March 20th in LA for anyone that wants to come. We'll circulate the information. Keynotes there. It's going to be Chris Dixon from A16Z, Anatoly from Solana. So we really are able to get these amazing people come in to work with the students. And as we think about that, that's the, you know, the flywheel of the ecosystem. Bring in amazing students, have great partners in the industry, and fund research for thought leadership. Help the students fund their startups, alumni fund startups, community engagement. And for us, it's how do you create this virtuous cycle? And we're really excited because of partnerships like this that help us kind of go outside of some of our core strengths and help us leverage our DC campus, help us leverage what's so important in terms of policy and regulation, and making sure that US and globally, we're educating our students in how those things work. So just a big thank you to Paul, big thank you to everyone. I look forward to, one, being there in person in the future, and then two, would love to, collaborate with people as we try to educate students and the general population, not just within, the walls of USC, but especially in the Web3 world. To think about just educating a student in a classroom kind of goes against the whole ethos of what we're trying to do. So our idea is our footprint is USC, but our impact is global, and in helping as many people who can get educated on the industry. So with that, we will circulate information. We'd love to see anyone in March. We look forward to this partnership and hosting you all in the DC campus going forward. It is a beautiful facility, and we're thrilled to be involved with this and thrilled for the things to come in the years.
Thank you so much, James. I mean, it just seems so obvious you're bringing a ton of value to this PGP community and to the DC area with your influence that you're going to have. So thanks for the partnership. Thanks for joining us this morning. I know you have a conflict and you have to jump right now, but we will see you in March. So we're looking forward to that.
Thank you all. Talk to you soon.
All right. Talk to you soon. Okay. So we're going to get started with our updates. You probably have noticed that we have a little bit different format today. We're live streaming, so we have some people online here. Those are our remote presenters, but we have an audience online through the live stream as well. So that's where a lot of the people who normally are on the screen are at today. So if you want to present in the future, make sure you let me know so we can make sure we get you in the Zoom so you're ready to present remotely if you can't be here in person. Our first speaker today is Dave Grimaldi from the Blockchain Association, Executive Vice President of Government Relations. Dave is an incredible asset to this industry here in DC. I don't know how he does it, but he's going to come up here and probably synthesize an incredible amount of information in about 5 minutes. So I am looking forward to it. Dave, would you set the stage for us and give us an update on where things stand right now?
Thanks, Paul. Good morning, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day. Where to begin? And as always, yell out updates, intel, things that you know that we don't know about, anything that I mention or anything along the lines of the federal government, Congress, etc. It's a little on the quiet side this month. And if you're looking at the legislative calendar, it's funny, a couple of us went up to a Congressman Jim Himes fundraiser at Digital Currency Group a couple of weeks ago. And Himes is sitting there in late January in front of a bunch of investors and DCG portfolio companies. And he says, the legislative year is almost over. We're looking at this, that, and the other. And I'm looking at the non-DC people in the room and they're turning to each other with this look on their face like it's January. What does he mean the year is almost over? There's actually some merit to that. And a lot of you in this room kind of follow what he's saying. If you look at the congressional recesses with Easter, a couple holidays interspersed in between, rolling into the summer, 4th of July, then third week of July, last week of July, Congress will adjourn. They'll be out all of August, couple weeks of September, then they'll be out again until the November election. So when you look at legislative days, it is very, very few. And that's a presidential election year, and that's normally the way it goes. But Himes's point was, it is absolutely high time for your industry to continue education of lawmakers, to do it every day, to do it in any way you can, and to keep that up. And this is not so much an update of hearings coming up, and we'll go into that in a moment. But it's kind of a plea to help us spread the message as we're doing it. Himes and a couple other House members, Democrats who are on our side, have said, I bring up legislative pieces and other priorities of yours, but people still don't understand the fundamental building blocks of crypto and blockchain technology. They don't understand your positive use cases. You just have to keep pushing that out. And what that will do is have the effect of pushing back on what Congress still uses to define us, which is FTX, and now it's Hamas and illicit finance. FTX kind of, since it's the beginning of a new year, kind of looking at the year behind us, FTX bogged us down all of last year. It has absolutely faded in Senate and House meetings that we are having. It's coming up less and less. You're not hearing the name of its founder as much as you used to. we thought we were digging out of a year-long dark storm cloud above us. And then October 7th happened. The Wall Street Journal wrote an article erroneously attributing funds flowing through blockchain technology to Hamas, which was then used on its attack. And Elizabeth Warren grabbed that, weaponized it, ran with it, put together a letter that had over 100 members of Congress sign it. She's doing personal house calls to recruit people to that letter and to her legislation. And that has kind of now taken the place of the scandal du jour or the dark cloud that we're going to have over us this year. And it's not just her, it's other senior Democratic senators who have credibility and gravitas, and they're seen as leaders, Mark Warner, Jack Reed, and others. And what they're purporting to do in some of their legislative language is to impose Bank Secrecy Act obligations on peer-to-peer decentralized networks. Because if you're a Democrat in Congress, you're a Democrat like Elizabeth Warren, a pro-consumer, progressive Democrat, peer-to-peer scares the living hell out of you. We don't know who's on either side of that transaction. We don't know who's sending money to who. We need to have disclosures and other obligations, and they need to fit under what we think are, we meaning these lawmakers, what they see as tried and true disclosure rules that will protect consumers. And so what we're trying to do is push back on a lot of that rhetoric. And we most recently did it with a letter that we tweeted out. It's on Blockchain Association's homepage, signed by 80 former national security and intelligence professionals who are now executives at blockchain and crypto companies, saying, if you want the facts, let us tell you what we saw from a cybersecurity perspective when we were in government. Let us myth bust and separate fact from fiction for you now. And we did a fly-in and had tremendous success with dozens of meetings and staff leaning in and listening to us and trusting us. Senator Warren sent a letter to us after that saying, I am dubious and skeptical of your weaponization of former national security professionals. I'm paraphrasing, who are you co-opting and how are you doing it? And it's one of these things where you just shake your head and you're like, what do we have to do to get a win here? Like, we're actually bringing credentialed, seasoned intelligence officers to DC to talk about this, yet we still can't catch a break. So it endures, and we're going to keep this up this year, no matter what. Yeah.
Can I interrupt you for just a moment? So on the topic that you're just now talking about, we have a couple of speakers who have to jump in like 10 minutes. So I ask them to go real quick because it's on the topic that you were referring to, and then we'll bring you right back.
Paul praised me for synthesizing things in 5 minutes, and then he's like, "Get off the podium! You're taking too long." So, yes, go, and then I'll come back.
Yeah, we're going to bring you right back because we have a couple special speakers. Okay, all right. We have a couple of special speakers today that are online, and they're going to have to leave in 10 minutes because they're on the Hill doing meetings as we speak. It's Michael Mosier and Rebecca Rettig. Michael and Rebecca need no introduction. I'll just mention their current roles. Michael is co-founder at Arcturos LLC, and Rebecca is chief legal officer and chief legal and policy officer at Polygon Labs. They recently released a paper that begins a conversation around and proposes a conceptual framework for how to answer the illicit finance policy question as it relates to DeFi. A real simple topic there. Michael and Rebecca, thanks for being with us today remotely as you're making the rounds with this paper. Please take the floor.
Thanks so much. And thanks for having us. Thanks everyone for being here and listening. Dave, thanks for teeing us up so well. I thought that was like a perfect intro. So I thought it was intentional. So very appreciative of that. I think honestly, given what Dave said, one of the first things we were going to talk about is the motivations for writing this paper. But I really do think what Dave talked about encapsulates it, right? Like the AML question with crypto generally has seemingly become very existential in DC and honestly beyond. FATF is really thinking about what to do in permissionless networks and in DeFi for a while, as have other international regulators. We even saw something this morning about the Japanese Financial Services Authority looking to crack down on illicit transactions there. So this is an international issue that I think rises well above some of the what is crypto a security commodity question that we've been grappling with in the United States. And so we've seen, especially in a lot of the bills that have come out and a lot of the proposals, people will just throw in like DeFi or DeFi services. And so Michael and I, and one of our other co-authors is Katya Gilman, who works at Polygon Labs on our policy team as well, and put up with a lot of the research and all of the things that Michael and I had and all our ideas. So many thanks to Katya for that, to try to come up with it's sort of a beginning of the proposals, right? At the end of November, we saw the Deputy Treasury Secretary say, you guys have to help us out here, give us something. And so this was our first attempt at something, along with all the other efforts that are being made by the industry. For people who haven't seen it yet, there is a new announcement of the Security Alliance that came out today, spearheaded by Sam Sun, who is a very famous white hacker. Another great initiative. Not time to talk about that now, but definitely go check it out, because it's another thing that is really intended to keep the ecosystem safe. But in that front, the paper is set out in a number of ways. It first of all gives a background on the Bank Secrecy Act and the sanctions regime in the United States, really looking at what financial integrity does here. Regardless of how anybody in crypto does or does not feel about this regime, it is what we are grappling with in the United States, and the framework which we felt we had to work in order for people at least to listen to something new and somewhat novel. The next part really goes into what DeFi is. I think there's been a lot of misconceptions on DeFi, and I think there's a lot of discussion as well on, well, not all DeFi is decentralized, and what does that mean, and how do we figure that out? And we have a great graphic that everybody can look at to really see the DeFi transaction flow and where it goes down into the base layer of the technology as well. So something that could just be one page that somebody, and for anybody on the Hill, you guys can take it and use it as the sort of DeFi explainer, if that's helpful in any way. And then the next part goes into really this conceptual framework of what combating illicit finance could look like in DeFi. The first part does address the how do we decide if something is decentralized or not question. There is a scholarly paper called On DeFi and On-Chain CeFi. It's by Katrin Schuler and Sophie Klutz and Fabian Schar. For anybody who's sort of seen a lot of the scholarly work out there on DeFi, they've done many other papers separately on DeFi and what it is, and have done a lot of policy work behind the scenes. And so they split this out between these smart contract-based networks that have control and genuine neutral infrastructure. And so one of the ways is that we try to move the conversation on this on-chain CeFi concept forward is to give a definition of control that is very much grounded in the 2019 guidance. I think Michael and I felt very strongly that we did not want to sort of rewrite the book and create something new, but otherwise wanted to ground the proposal in something that existed. So Mike, do you want to jump in just to talk about the control definition for a second, and then we'll rush off to our next part of the framework quickly?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, part of the whole plan here was to be not radically new about things, and actually, if anything, remind policymakers that like you have this under control. You're just trying to make every RPC node into a bank, but you don't need to. And there's ways to handle this, and including the way that you've already thought through control in the FinCEN definition, which is total independent control. And there's a reason that we wrote it that way at the time, which was that just because somebody kicks out the plug on AWS doesn't make them a bank. That's the short of it. But Rebecca, I'll jump back over.
Yeah, we really tried to ground it in control over value in the network rather than these concepts of custody and the like, even though obviously custody has a control of value element to it. And we did try to put nuance on it. We got a lot of feedback even before we published the paper, and people were saying like, well, this could capture emergency multi-sigs, and is that what you really intend to do? And obviously that is not what we really intended to do. And so it is on the on-chain CeFi, is there some sort of regulatory hook question? It's a two-part test, which is there control? And if so, do facts and circumstances, which has really been FinCEN's standard, give rise to treating whatever this system is like a financial institution? Obviously, the list of financial institutions is finite and the threshold is very high. So it seems unlikely that, all of the smart contract-based systems where there is even a system control person would necessarily fall under the definition of FI and have obligations under the BSA. The second part is about what the article calls and what we adopt is this genuine DeFi concept, which is critical, neutral infrastructure, no system control person. People always ask for an example. I think the best example of true genuine DeFi is the Uniswap protocol. No admin key, no, operating autonomously, no system control person involved. And what we tried to do there is actually what already exists. And Mike is great on this. I'll turn it over to him in a second. But the way that any software or technological infrastructure underlying the financial services system is really looked at right now is as critical infrastructure. The Cybersecurity and Information Security Agency, or CISA, falls under DHS and regulates all critical infrastructure under 16 different sectors, including farming, transportation, healthcare, things like that, and obviously financial services as well. And so the Office of Cybersecurity and Critical Infrastructure Protection in the Treasury Department is the one who oversees critical infrastructure underlying the financial services sector. So Michael, in our last minute before we go to the very last part of the framework, do you want to talk about OSIP for a second?
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. I think the key items for OSIP is that it really works through collaboration, not coercion. There's no regulatory stick with OSIP. And the other point of it is that it does not depend on anybody being defined as a financial institution. And so their mandate is anybody that's operating infrastructure and in the cybersecurity space that has the touch point to the financial sector, they have an opportunity to coordinate threats, trends, and emerging typologies of risk indicators in real time as much as possible. And it could be AWS that they bring in, it could be the CISO for Goldman Sachs, or it could be somebody in the banking, but it just doesn't matter because the point is this is infrastructure and there needs to be a way to share information very quickly. And the reason that they've gone for so long without needing any sort of regulatory stick is because, not surprisingly, no matter where you are, including running a router for Cisco, if Treasury calls you and says you're about to be attacked and there's a way that we can secure the infrastructure that underlies financial, but also might be non-financial, they just don't care. It doesn't matter. Like, we don't need these limiting factors. People show up and they come in. And so they coordinate that through this thing called the FSISAC, which is the Financial Sector Information Sharing and Analytics Center. It's really just a public-private sector nonprofit with 4,600 members that the industry itself puts together. There's no sort of coercion around that either. In fact, if anything, people want to be in it because they want these real-time indicators put out. And so our thinking was, this works already. It includes non-bank entities and has nothing to do with your definition as a financial institution or collecting KYC, because the point is to stop threats. And we don't care what the name is of the person in Lazarus. We just want to stop Lazarus. So, Rebecca?
Yeah. And for anybody who wants to know Michael's favorite part of the paper, it's that we say up in the description of the BSA that there's no such concept as KYC in the Bank Secrecy Act itself. So enjoy that paragraph. And that, because to Michael's point, it's really become, I think, an overblown concept in how to think about combating illicit finance, and is not something that we, I think, generally think it's the most effective way to do it. We understand for financial institutions, there is some sort of level of effectiveness, but certainly not for software providers, or maybe not in the banking sector. But I'm just saying, we had to accept some things as we move forward with this paper. And so the very last piece is really an effectiveness piece, because we didn't think, just these two ideas of control and OSIP was going to be enough. And so we really wanted to give a hook. And we really looked at if you look at the DeFi transaction flow graphic in the paper, you can see that the true gateway between the communications going across the DeFi software and technology is really brought down to the base layer technology through RPC nodes. As Michael said, RPCs have been around since the 1970s. It's just a way for computers to talk to each other, or computer networks to talk to each other. And what has happened, though, is I can host my own RPC node. In the office I'm in, there's an RPC node sort of behind me. But there are businesses that have been spun up that provide RPC as a service, just like we have cloud service providers and things like that. And whereas they're certainly never take custody, they don't have any features of anything that looks like a financial institution, they do see a significant volume of data. that goes through on the communications. And looking back at the old list of FIs, and again, we are not making RPCs as financial institutions, but telegraphs were included in there in part for the communications about financial transactions. And so we're very adamant that we didn't want to bring any tech infrastructure provider under the Bank Secrecy Act, but we did believe that new legislation could be possible to have RPCs as a service. And we do make it a very, very, very high threshold. So me hosting my own RPC would not turn me into what we call critical communications transmitters with enhanced illicit financial integrity requirements. But we thought that new legislation could have these businesses that really reach a certain threshold of materially moving a significant portion of these communications down to the base layer, where they could one, put wallet risk scoring on, which would block off some of these very risky wallets according to blockchain analytics. And obviously there would have to be notice, comment, and rulemaking on any of this. Legislation alone couldn't set the standards for when a wallet is risky and what factors would go into that. But they'd be blocking these transactions off, which quite frankly is much more effective than having validators KYC anyone doing a transaction coming through. Because as Mike said, Lazarus isn't like turning over their name or their driver's license, or their own name or driver's license. So you can identify them as Lazarus. So be blocking off these very risky wallets. It will also help on the hacks and scam stuff as well, not just from the sanctions, terrorist financing portion of it. And then also having these auto reports that can be generated, again, not with personal information, but things like transaction hash, wallet ID, and the like. So that's the quick overview of it. Mike and I, as Paul said, this is really the beginning of a conversation. We are happy to take feedback. We're happy to have conversations with anybody. Certainly this can be built upon, improved, expanded, and all of that. So we welcome any further discussions. And thank you so much, Paul, for having us here and fitting us in the right time slot. We're very grateful for that.
Well, thank you for making the time. Thank you for your thought leadership and for starting this conversation. It's critical right now. And I wish you the best of luck as you take this proposal around DC and share it with many others. So off to you and good luck. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
So as you can probably tell, I'm working hard to get a couple of people in who have hard cutoffs in just a moment. Connor, would you please tell us a little bit of an update about what you're doing and have got planned coming up with your event?
Yeah, thanks so much, Paul. Great to be here and with all these amazing co-speakers. So I run an organization called the Decentralization Research Center, and we're a nonprofit that supports nonpartisan decentralization research. And the mission is to encourage equitable ownership, governance, and regulation of revolutionary technologies, which of course includes blockchain. I've been in the blockchain advocacy space for quite a while now. One way we do that, one way we encourage this equitable ownership and regulation is to host events that bring together policymakers and regulators and academics and industry. And I'm sure the group in this room has been at many of those kinds of events. We've hosted this year events at Harvard and Stanford, the University of Toronto, the University of Tokyo. I'm here today to announce our next event, which is going to be the Equitable Tech Summit, which we're hosting at the National Press Club with the Blockchain Association. And so the summit's going to focus really on equitable ownership and governance of emerging technologies with a deep focus on blockchain and a bit of a focus on AI. We're going to look to how we can avoid to make the same mistakes we did in Web 2.0. As Dave mentioned, Congress seems pretty skeptical about use cases for blockchain, and maybe with good reason at times. And a big focus of our event is to zero in on those non-financial use cases that we think are going to be particularly interesting to progressives. So at Harvard, we focused on how blockchain tooling can be used by equitably owned and governed social media companies to compete against bigger platforms. We also wrote a piece with Stanford on how blockchain-based decentralized identity systems could be used to mitigate the risk of AI to democratic systems. And we're now writing a paper on how blockchain can be used for better outcomes for antitrust. So really zeroing in on those things that Democrats care about and helping them understand that it's the technology that can help them get there. So if you'd like to attend the event, please you can reach out to me via Paul or reach out to us at info@thedrcenter.org. We're the Decentralization Research Center. We're on Twitter. I'm sure you'll be able to find us. But thanks so much, Paul, for having us to make this announcement, and we'll see you at the Equitable Tech Summit.
Thanks, Connor. I know you have to jump as well. So thanks for being here, and I'm looking forward to that event. I think it's going to be really exciting, and I'm glad the Blockchain Association is working with you on that. Okay, so sorry to have little time crunch there, and I have to apologize. Chris Edwards, you were actually like at the top of my list today as well, but I had to like work things around to accommodate a couple of people's schedules. I'm going to get right back to you, Chris, but I really feel like I need to let David, let Dave finish his update. So if you don't mind, could you come back, because you didn't actually get to talk about much that's happening on the Hill, which is what you're.
I'll go real fast, Paul. Thank you.
You don't have to go fast.
And it's interesting following Rebecca and Mike, who are just such warriors for us. Right now in the House Financial Services Committee, there is a FinCEN and terrorist financing hearing with the FinCEN director and the undersecretary for counterterrorism testifying. So query whether or not our issues will come up. My colleague, Ron Hammond, texted moments ago that Maxine Waters mentioned Binance in her opening statement. I don't know what she said or how, but I guess that's not surprising. So we'll see how that hearing goes. And then tomorrow, in the Digital Asset Subcommittee in House Financial Services, there is a hearing entitled Crypto Crime in Context, Part 2, Examining Approaches to Combat Illicit Activity. Caroline Hill from Circle will be there. Mike Mosier will be there. Ari Redboard, a lot of you know Ari from TRM. And then Carol House, who was on the national security staff of the White House, and in my opinion, one of the best pro-crypto warriors that the Biden administration has had. I know that's a small list, but Carol was first among equals and just is such an asset. So she will be there testifying. Also, I would imagine at that hearing, Senator Warren's letter will come up. If you are new to watching congressional hearings, the biggest moments in them is the opening statements from the chair and the ranking member. That kind of sets the tone for the whole thing. We were also waiting for Congressman Sean Casten, Democrat from Illinois, to introduce his version of Senator Warren's Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act bill in the House. He has not done that. So we don't know what that stalling is. It was rumored that he wanted a Republican and he couldn't get one. So query as to whether or not AML is going to raise its head on the House side in some way that actually deals with a moving piece of legislation. In other news, there is much discussion about a stablecoin compromise finally making its way through Congress. It has been a topic of discussion between Democrats and Republicans now for months. And a lot of the debate has revolved around how the Federal Reserve would oversee the stablecoin arena and whether it would write rules about stablecoin issuance, and then what is the state versus federal pathway there, and what is the power of the central bank. Waters has been on the record as saying that. She says that they have never been closer, she and McHenry, on stablecoin language. But I think we're all smart enough to know that you can't believe it until you see it. And Senator Gillibrand is leading the charge on the Senate side as kind of the hub in the middle of the spokes with the Fed and the West Wing and Treasury, and she is hoping and is bullish that she can introduce language this year as well. We are unsure of switching to market structure, the FIT bill. We're unsure of its path to the floor, which has been rumored to be sometime before the Easter recess. That's what Chairman McHenry has said. They are busily drafting and revising sections. They reach out to us all the time. It's been a quiet couple of weeks, so we're unsure where in process the market structure bill is, but we're waiting and wondering what will come next. Paul, I think I can leave it there. And then we will enter election year, silly season pretty soon. One name, I'll end with this. One name that you will hear a lot of is Bernie Moreno from Cleveland, Ohio. He was endorsed by Trump for the Republican challenger role against Sherrod Brown. Moreno is, if you're from the DC area, you might know the Coons auto dealership or the Oarsman auto dealership. Well, Bernie Moreno is like that version in Cleveland. He cornered the Cleveland car market, worth hundreds of millions, probably mid-50s, very, very articulate, very telegenic. He pioneered, that might be too strong of a verb, but I think it's appropriate, the use of transferring card titles via blockchain technology. So there's an OG-ish aspect to Bernie Moreno. And lo and behold, he's running against the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, who is, a not shy critic of our industry. So that's a big race. And a lot of crypto and blockchain attention is turning to Ohio on that race. The margins in the Senate are super slim. I think that all of the smart money is on the Senate turning Republican. Larry Hogan, the former governor of Maryland, Republican, he just jumped in the race for the Maryland Senate seat that Ben Cardin is vacating. It's another Republican coming in. And if that happens, who knows what happens with that Ohio race with Bernie Moreno versus Sherrod Brown. So a lot of electoral pieces that have impact on our industry as well. Yes.
Have you heard anything much about the Tillis bill and what they are looking to do with that and kind of sending out official?
Yeah, great question. The bill by Senator Tom Tillis, Republican from North Carolina. Senator Tillis, I don't want to get too out ahead of some of my colleagues and some of the intel, because I think that it's largely on a shelf. Senator Tillis last week and over the weekend wanted to propose a Republican version of an anti-money laundering and CFT bill to kind of counteract against the Democratic drafts out there from Senators Jack Reed, Mark Warren, et cetera. He was working with industry. We were working with him. And I think that it became a little bit of an avalanche of input into his office. And I believe that they are standing down for the moment. And I think that's where this is now. I don't think it's moving anywhere. I don't want to get ahead, though, of others who are closer to his office, so I don't want to misrepresent anything. Is that okay? So yeah, I think right now, though, there were some very, very, very tricky DeFi definitions and pieces in there that caused concern, and input was given to his office, and I think they pushed back from the table. But I will find out more. I will find out more if that's okay for now. And I think that's Paul. I think those are the greatest hits.
Thank you. You always amaze me at how much information you can keep at the top of your head about all that's happening in the political scene for cryptocurrency. So thank you for all that you do. Okay, well, thanks for working with me as I got through that first 30 minutes. It was a little bit hectic there. Sorry about that. But now we can take a breather and I can get back onto schedule. So Chris, I wanted to allow you to introduce yourself first of all and tell us a little bit about Coinbase Institute. Again, thanking you for coming on board as a sponsor and partner for the PGP series. After Chris, we're going to go to Michelle. So Chris, please take it away.
Thank you, Paul. Very happy to be here and happy to be a sponsor of this series. I was able to attend a few of the events last year and all of them were incredibly informative. And so looking forward to the convenings and the conversations this year. Just very quickly for those who aren't familiar with it. So I'm the head of the Coinbase Institute, which is basically designed to be Coinbase's internal policy think tank. So really where we spend a lot of our time and mental energy is focusing on not necessarily the areas of crypto policy conversation that are at the forefront today, but that we believe have the potential to be at the forefront in a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, et cetera. You and I, Paul, have been able to talk about some of these issues a handful of times, and a lot of those issues that I myself am focused on are the same and have some degree of interconnection with what we have been talking about thus far today. I think that the interconnection between crypto and national security is a big one, and that's an area that we continue to iterate on throughout 2024. We have some events and papers and things like that that are planned. And the other one that I'll quickly plug that I think is also relevant to what we've been hearing about is the area of use cases. And that's something that we very much are trying to kind of hammer home over the coming months. We have a series where the first paper has come out that we're calling the Crypto on Main Street series. And the basic idea is to put together information, research, data, explaining to policymakers how crypto and blockchain are in fact being used today to benefit real people. It's not hypothetical or theoretical. It's taking place right now. And so our first primer on this had to do with crypto and small businesses, how small businesses are incorporating crypto for things like loans, cybersecurity management, and things like that. And then we have a few other papers that are coming out in the subsequent weeks and months that will be on similar areas, how crypto is benefiting local government and physical infrastructure and things like that. And so that is one of our main focuses right now, that we're getting the papers out. And then again, we plan to take that show on the road in terms of explaining these use cases in person, both in DC and on Main Street itself, kind of outside of the Beltway. And so that's kind of my quick area that I'll plug. You'll hear from Nora Sackett later on with another, big project that we're working on. But I won't steal her thunder on that one. But all of that to say, very excited to be working with you throughout this year and to plug some of these ideas into the Pretty Good Policy series.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey with the PGP program, and for bringing all of these updates that I know you're going to bring over this year to the meetings. So we're very excited about that. Okay, so another featured speaker. I've been really looking forward to this one and to sharing it with you, because I have had a special opportunity to get a hold of this book here, Reimagining Payments, The Business Case for Digital Currencies by Michelle Ann Gitlitz. Michelle did a fantastic job of writing this book. It's brand new. If it's not on your radar, it is now. You should get a copy, share it with your friends who are interested in adopting cryptocurrencies for payments, because this is basically the payments Bible, I think. That's the way I'm going to say it. So, Michelle, please give us an update. Tell us what you think about the book. Tell us the status. Tell us your thoughts about policy, etc. The floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you so much, Paul. And thank you for those kind words and the generous introduction, and for reading the book before it hit the shelves and giving some very valuable comments. Thank you so much, everyone, for allowing me to speak today. I apologize that I'm remote. Unfortunately, the largest snowstorm in 2 years to hit the Northeast sort of foibled my travel plans, but made my children very happy about snow days in New York City, which never, ever, ever happen. So just by way of background, I'm the managing partner of the New York office of Arcturus PLLC, a law firm that specializes in financial integrity matters. You heard from my incredible partner, Michael Mosier, earlier. Just such a privilege to work with him and to also bring our services to the forefront for companies in the ecosystem. I personally help clients in the traditional payment space, in the crypto space, and in decentralized finance comply with the Bank Secrecy Act, sanctions rules, and state money transmission laws. I'm really excited to discuss my book, as Paul mentioned. In the book, I'm a lawyer, but the book is not legalese. I try to impart strategic and tactical advice to both emerging and established companies on the benefits of digital currency payments and really the future of commerce. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about the book and also about the potential impact of the passage of the Clarity for Payment Stablecoins Act and what impact that will have to a $2 trillion payments industry. So I got into crypto about 10 years ago. Sort of by chance, I was invited to a party that I frankly didn't really feel like attending, but felt like it's one of those nights where you should probably get out and do something fun. And I went to this party with traditional financial services people, lawyers, bankers, secondary market traders, and they were talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and mining, and I never heard these three words. And so after feeling super awkward that all these people in my industry, because I was a financial services lawyer, were saying words that I'd never heard about, I was taken by the fact that they were so passionate that blockchain and cryptocurrencies were going to disrupt the financial ecosystem. So at that time, there was no materials, there were no schools, there was really no established method of learning about the ecosystem. So I'm completely self-taught and spent a lot of time in Brooklyn Navy Yards and at meetup groups and things like that, really very authentically learning from anyone who would talk to me or teach me. And it was fun, and I love the ecosystem. In the summer of 2022, we had this horrible crypto winter, an impending recession, and I thought really about the 2008 financial crisis and how things felt very similar. Like, were we heading back into another recession? And I thought about payments and how difficult it is sometimes to pay, that there's high transaction costs, there's a lack of robust security, there's privacy limitations, there's chargebacks. And so I decided to write this book about the evolution of money and payments and banking and the birth of Bitcoin, which came out of the 2008 financial crisis. And really looking at case studies and analyzing and synthesizing the use case for digital currencies and blockchain in the payments ecosystem. And I think now is a really great time to focus on those issues because of the Clarity for Payments Stablecoin Act. I'm sure you're all very familiar with it. And the framework that it establishes to regulate, supervise, and enforce laws that apply, the same regulatory frameworks that govern traditional financial services companies will cover those stablecoin issuers such as Circle, Paxos, Gemini, and PayPal. And we will know if the legislation passed that these stablecoins are neither securities or commodities, and then they're not subject to jurisdiction by the CFTC or the SEC. And so I think it's really a massive opportunity in the context of payments. We know consumers are already buying burritos with Bitcoin at Chipotle, and Equinox members are paying their membership dues with digital currencies. You can shop at Ralph Lauren in Miami and pay with crypto. And I find it mind-blowing that 500 million Shopify users spend crypto at almost 2 million merchants. And then I think on the central bank digital currency front, which, candidly, I think we're sort of behind the race of the rest of the world. 90% of central banks are experimenting with CBDCs. And so I think that we can expand, financial security and inclusion, particularly to vulnerable populations who can't easily access brick and mortar banking solutions or payment solutions by using blockchain rails. And those rails update our very, very decades old financial system, and they lower transaction costs, and they're not fragmented, and they're generally interoperable, although we all know there are some pain points there. And I think the Clarity for Payment Stablecoins Act really is a signal to the market that stablecoins are safe and that they're part of the same regulatory environment, and that it's okay and safe to spend with them. So, I'm really happy to be here and talk about this and my thoughts, and please reach out if I can be helpful, or if you just want to collaborate and talk about payments and crypto.
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate that update. Thanks for the effort in writing this book, and it's such a resource to us all. I know you cannot be at the PGP in March because of travel, but hopefully we'll get you to the next one after that, and you can meet everybody here in person. So
sounds great. Thank you.
Sorry the travel didn't work out for you today. Okay, well, now we're going into our lightning round. We have a few updates here I want to get in pretty quick. We are going to go to, let's see, Nora, please, and then we're going to go to Greg and Naeem here in the room. So Nora, would you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your project?
Sure thing. Thank you so much. My name is Nora Sackett. I am the Director of the Office of Strategy, Science, and Technology here in the state of New Mexico. I work to support science and tech startups in New Mexico and attract additional science and tech development in our state. We fly under the radar a bit typically, but have 2 national labs here and have really strong science and tech transfer and development here that we are working to grow and expand commercialization of. I'm here today at the invite of Chris and Paul. Thank you very much. The state of New Mexico is working with Chris and Coinbase, as well as some other folks, Crosslink Capital, Orange DAO, some others, to host an innovative forum next month here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with a diverse group of stakeholders to explore how New Mexico can be a destination and hub for Web3 and crypto technology, policy, and innovation, examining investment opportunities and specifically prospective legislation for the state of New Mexico to support this ecosystem. So we are really excited about this new venture. I am not a subject matter on this at all, so I apologize. It's been a very interesting conversation for me to listen into. But we're really excited about what this may be able to bring to New Mexico and add to the wider Web3 and crypto ecosystem nationwide and globally. The state's also working with one of our local colleges here that is really the local powerhouse in all things workforce, as they stand up a Web3 center focused on workforce training and resource availability. So yeah, I'm short and sweet. I just wanted to say thank you to Chris and Paul for having me here today, and Chris or I are happy to connect with anybody who has any questions about our event called Converge ABQ. Feel free to reach out. Thanks very much.
Oh, that's exciting stuff. Thank you very much, Nora, for that update on New Mexico. And while we're on state issues, it's natural to just jump over to Greg. Greg, tell us about what's happening in Virginia.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Chris, for the invite. I'm Greg Leffel, the Executive Director of the Virginia Blockchain Council. We're a grassroots nonprofit advocacy trade membership. And, we like to say in Virginia, it's only proper that we bring this up today, it being Valentine's Day, that Virginia is for blockchain lovers. And we take the attack that the states are the laboratories of democracy, that famous quote from Justice Brandeis. So just quickly, in Virginia, we have a Democratic majority in both chambers now. We have a Republican governor. We're one of the first legislatures to actually go in session across the country. So we have a 60-day session this year. We're halfway through, 140 members. And here's an interesting point. Of those 140, 53 are new faces. So nearly a third of our legislature is new. So that's been very interesting for us. But what came out of that was we found a new champion, Senator Salim, out of the Fairfax area. He has sponsored a few bills, and I'll just highlight these. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. But Senate Bill 339, it started as a digital mining bill with definitions, protections for proof of work and proof of stake. It has since been kind of pared down to more of a work group type bill. We'll put 13 members in a work group. Vitally important, because every time we're in session, it's deer in headlights, much like what Dave was saying. It's all about education and getting folks in our legislature familiar with this technology. So very interesting bill. We also had Senator Head, who passed some legislation here in Virginia a couple years back. So we've got bipartisan support on that. Super exciting. The last bill I'll bring up is Senate Bill 439. That's more of a commission bill. 339 would be kind of like subordinate to this commission. We feel like we have more opportunity to get 339 through. But yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I just want to extend the folks to reach out. If you're in Northern Virginia or DC, we're always happy to connect and continue to push the needle forward. And again, hey, Virginia is for blockchain lovers.
Yeah, I'm a Virginian, so and I'm definitely in that group. And even though we're sitting in DC right now, thanks for your work, Greg. Sure, appreciate that update. That's really exciting stuff. Okay, so a couple more updates here. I've got Naeem. Are you in the room? Why don't you come on up? We've got online. We've got Crystal, who is going to give us an update. Crystal is from Kraken, so she'll be right after Naeem, and then we're going to go to Gerald, and then we have one more from. Let's see, just to tee you up. It's going to be Takaya will be up next. Okay.
What a great morning. Bitcoin passed 52K and reconnecting with some Thank you, sir. And reconnecting with some friends and colleagues in this space. And I wanted to express my gratitude and appreciation to Paul, Blockchain Association, Coinbase, and USC for contributing to this event. And I have been coming since the very beginning, and I can say that this is just getting better every time. Announcement that I have, and many of you guys might know, for those that you don't know me, I'm Naeem Kanjani, founder and former CEO of Electro Analytics, a public affairs, government affairs software company based in DC, but our company was acquired by Punchbowl News late last year, which is very exciting, and I'm very optimistic for the road ahead. Now, in addition to the platform, we'll have the news and reporting aspect. And on the announcement, while we are relaunching our platform, Punchbowl News expanded their coverage, which is the financial sector. Some of you might have heard that, and some of you might be subscribers of Punchbowl News already. The financial sector that they launched earlier this year, which I found it very relevant for this group. We are hosting an event on Tuesday, 27th. Would love to have some of you join us. And one last thing which is a very good data for me to share. Punchbowl News is on 100% offices on the Hill and 97% on the Fortune 500 companies. Again, thanks, Paul, for hosting us, and this has been great.
Congratulations on your news name, and thank you for being a longtime participant in the PGP program. Okay, next up, I think I said,
Crystal?
Yeah, Crystal, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. We can't see you though, but please go ahead, take the floor.
Thank you so much for having me, and Carol, thank you for inviting me. My name is Crystal No. I lead the global sanctions program at Kraken. It's an exchange. And one of the things I was hoping to share with everyone in the room, and if there's an opportunity, reach out and we can continue the discussion. Recently, at the request of the European Commission, the European Banking Authority is working on guidelines and regulations that would create a consistent and very rigorous framework for sanctions across the EU member states. And what that means is, until now, they've identified that examiners in each of the member states have different levels of rigor and different expectations of sanctions programs. So what they're doing is they're now going to raise the bar unilaterally across all EU member states. And some of the things required in that package is, two people review every piece of data that comes into sanctions, creating data governance programs for client data for accuracy and completeness, and creating program assessments, which is different from a risk assessment, creating program assessments that assess your exposure to sanctions risk. And lots of stuff is in there. And I've noticed that it went under the radar because everybody is focused on MiCA. So I thought I'd share with this group that if you do business in the EU or with EU persons or companies, it behooves you to look up the European Banking Authority, the EBA's most recent guidelines for financial institutions, payment service providers, VASPs and CASPs, because there's a lot of stuff in there that folks haven't noticed. And unless we respond to the request for public commentary, which is closing up towards the end of March, this comes into effect December 30th of this year. That's all I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us at the last minute, Crystal. It's a very important update. So please, everyone, keep that on your radar if you're doing business there. And please join us again in the future, Crystal. We'd love to hear from you again. Okay, did we have Joe? Did you want to come up?
Yeah, sure. All right, thanks, Paul. So I know we're kind of over time here.
We're not going to hear you unless you're right here.
Yeah.
Okay, because we're live streaming. So yeah, hold 1 second. Gerald's coming on that. And Zakaya, are you going to come up next, please? Come on up.
Thanks, Paul. Hey, everyone. To those of you I don't know, I'm Gerald Gallagher. I'm fractional general counsel for Web3 companies based here in DC, actually right across the river in like Delray. I'm actually on the board of the Virginia Blockchain Council with Greg, and also serve on the Future of Finance Working Committee for the Bretton Woods Committee. I just want to let you guys know we started an organization recently called DC DAO. We hosted our first event last week in conjunction with Virginia Blockchain Council. We're focused on 3 different things. We're going to be a city DAO organized as a limited cooperative association, if you're familiar with that structure at all. Basically, we're interested in community, innovation, and policy. So we're going to be looking to build bridges with the local trade associations. We don't think that maybe an independent policy group needs to exist, but we look forward to working with you guys and educating more of the very online kind of degen portion of our community, who's not going to read, unfortunately, Rebecca and Mike's great paper, but still needs to know what's going on. And yeah, we're going to be hosting more events. The big one that I wanted to tell this group about is we're going to be hosting ETHDC in May. So I will be able to share more at subsequent PGP breakfasts. And I think we're also going to turn the thing we had last week into a monthly meetup as well. So I hope to share more information on that. And please reach out if you want to get in touch and learn more. Appreciate it.
Okay, one more update.
Okay, so I would like to announce that the Japan FinTech Week will be held from March 4th to 8th. And I'm speaking here as one of the organizers of blockchain governance initiative network. We're gonna hold 10th general meeting in Tokyo. And so that, yeah, we are actually selling the tickets right now. And I know that you haven't, planned the trip to Japan, but we welcome remote participation as well. So the tickets price is only like $30 US dollars. So please visit the website begin global.org, and you can take a look at the details of the program. And so let me introduce a little bit about the program, the details of the program. So we actually had the last meeting in Sydney, Australia, and we had a really great conversation about, for example, privacy versus discoverability. And we had a discussion between cyberpunks and prosecutors. And, we discussed this definition of privacy and, so they have different definitions of privacy between prosecutors and cyberpunks. And I think it's really great discussion, and it's really helpful to set the foundation of all of the discussion we're gonna have for the blockchain industry. And also we're gonna talk about DeFi as well. And the session chair will be Carol House, who is member of Technology Advisory Committee of CFTC, and she's going to talk about the paper that are published recently, like last month. And also, we're going to discuss the papers published by OSCO and like other important organizations that are focusing on DeFi. And yeah, I think we also got a lot of like sponsors this time, and Chain Analysis and Circle, Sanctuary, became the sponsors of this event. So yeah, I think this is definitely a great event. And like the difference between these other events and this event is that we focus on the discussion-based sessions. We do not provide any like panel discussion like speaker series. So we're gonna have only like discussion-based workshop sessions, so that everyone is welcomed to have an open conversation about these topics. And yeah, so please let me know if you know more about the detail of this program and the activities of this organization. So yeah, thank you.
And on that note, I think it's also appropriate to say thank you to Professor Matsuo, who can't be here today. He's traveling. He's normally here to talk about the Begin activities, but Begin's been doing some great work over a long period of time now. It's got a great track record, and I hope you all tune into that effort. It's going to be a very good conference and a good event. So with that, another jam-packed, content-rich PGP meeting. That was very dense. I want to thank you all for joining. Thank you for your support as we transition to a little bit of a new model today, and then to a new venue next month. Bring a friend, and we'll all work on pretty good policy for crypto together. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for being here.